Salut, c'est Clément. Je suis en direct de la baie de San Francisco, de son grand ciel bleu et de son magnifique soleil. Je suis également en direct de la WWDC, la conférence annuelle des développeurs Apple. Je voulais vous introduire ce soir le concept d'interview que je vais mener et poster sur le site du laboratoire Apple de Supinfo pour le compte du laboratoire Apple de Supinfo International et du site Mac4ever. Initialement, Antoine, Enzo et moi-même, les trois développeurs iOS issus des promotions actuelles de Supinfo présents à San Francisco, devions rédiger des articles concernant les API que nous fournit Apple pour macOS 10.9 et iOS 7. Seulement, il est écrit partout dans le Moscone Center, là où se tient cette conférence, qu'on n'a pas le droit d'en parler, que c'est sous NDA et compagnie. Du coup, pour ne pas déroger à cette règle, j'ai contacté et j'ai interviewé quelques développeurs reconnus sur la scène nationale et internationale du développement iOS pour qu'ils nous parlent de leur background, de ce qu'ils pensent des produits actuels d'Apple, de ce qu'ils aimeraient voir dans les prochaines releases de macOS 10 ou d'iOS. On va accueillir tout de suite Simon Allardice du site lynda.com. Je vous souhaite un bon visionnage et je vous dis à tout de suite.
So I'm here today with Simon Allardice from lynda.com. Hello Simon. How are you today?
I'm good. I'm enjoying WWDC.
Okay, so I just say that you come from lynda.com website. Could you take a bit more about you and about your website?
Sure, absolutely. So I develop most of the iOS content for lynda.com. I've been involved with Lynda since about 1999. I actually started off doing physical training for them before they even went online and did training there. I've been a programmer for about 30 years. I mean, I started off in my teenage years writing COBOL and assembler on mainframe computers, and the way I like to phrase it is I've pretty much done everything you can do with a computer, from programming safety routines for nuclear reactors to doing music drivers for computer games. Been involved with training on and off for about 10 years, and it's something I really enjoy doing. So I started with iOS around the time of the first beta, and that was something that I really enjoyed. So started doing courses for lynda.com. We didn't know how popular they would be, but they've been very, very popular indeed. So we've just done more and more of them as time goes by.
Okay, what about especially lynda.com? What about this website?
Sure. So lynda.com is a training website. It's very low cost. It's about $25 a month for all you can eat. We have over 1,000 courses ranging on everything from Photoshop and web design to programming iOS to photography to working with video to working with 3D, working with audio. It really covers a pretty huge amount of content now, and we have a lot of international users, a lot of people from different countries, a lot of people from universities as well.
French.
Yeah, including French. And we actually have just acquired Video to Brain, the company which has quite a lot of content in French and in German and Spanish. We're looking at internationalizing a lot of our training content in the coming years.
Okay, then what about so you tell that you tell us that you made essentially iOS content on lynda.com.
Yeah.
Could you tell us a bit about your studies in IT? May I think?
Sure, absolutely. So again, you know, started off. I started programming professionally when I was 17, and I pretty much haven't stopped since then. I'm in my mid-40s now, so nearly 30 years. That's involved stuff from mainframe development, very high-end scientific works on Cray workstations. I've done a lot of financial work. I tend to prefer working for smaller companies these days rather than large enterprise organizations, so I think I've got a pretty decent background, and I can usually imagine when people are developers, I've probably worked in the kind of companies they're coming from, so I understand their expectations most of the time of what they want to do.
Okay, and what about especially iOS and macOS?
Sure.
When have you discovered Apple World and iOS development, Cocoa development?
Sure. So actually, I did Mac development back with System 6 and System 7, which I can't even think how long ago that would have been. In the mid-early 90s, did some work on things like HyperCard. I didn't do an awful lot of Objective-C development until I started working with iOS. I'd done a little bit, but I didn't do really much with Cocoa. So I really did get back into this in around the 2008 kind of time.
When the iOS SDK was
Yeah,
released.
absolutely. When the SDK got released, that was the thing that really interested me back into it. And since doing that, I've actually done quite a bit more Cocoa development. I actually even have some courses at lynda.com on doing Cocoa and core data and things like that. And I think at that point, you know, it became a lot more realistic for people to develop both on iOS, and I've actually worked with a lot of people who got into the Apple world working on iOS development and then decided that they had very transferable skills to actually go and do Cocoa development rather than the other way around.
What about you? What do you think about the expandable world of iOS, or people when discovered iOS and then buy a Mac? What do you think about that?
I think it's a great way to do it. I mean, that's I don't think there's any problem with it. Kind of looking at people who might not have even used a Mac or an iOS until say a year ago and just kind of got into this based on the ease of use. I have several friends who are that way. It's really didn't do much with Macs, were PC people for many, many years until, you know, somebody handed them an iPad, somebody handed them an iPhone, and it was the, oh, wow, this is great, this is great, this is easy. You know, I remember at one point actually handing my wife my iPhone. This is back in probably 2008 or whenever it was, and she's not into technical, she's not an early adopter. And I handed her the phone, and she didn't really want to touch it at the time, and she was like, well, I don't know how to, oh, that's how I do that. Yeah, but now I don't know, oh, there it is. And it was just this very easy
way to do things, yeah.
Absolutely.
Message,
yeah. So.
Okay, great. And now we'll talk about the
Sure.
this year. What's your impression on macOS 10.10.9 thing? Yeah, Maverick. Have you tried it?
Yeah, I've tried it. I have it installed. For me, it's definitely kind of it is an evolution, not a revolution. This is a point release. It's not. There's nothing that is tremendously groundbreaking for me personally in development. I think there's some nice, interesting things like AppNap and working on power improvement, that kind of stuff. Apart from that, it's just
like
kind
they do in last year. In fact, they work on with PowerNap, I think, and some kind of.
Absolutely. So, you know, it's very nice. You know, am I going to, you know, talk to friends and say, oh, you must try it because of this? It's like, no, I'm sure I will upgrade. I'm sure I enjoy working on it. That's about it. It's a good addition.
Okay, now we saw on the keynote when Tim Cook and Craig Federighi presented the new iOS 7, which has been a lot of rumors, a lot of things like this. What are you thinking about? Because I personally tested. That's pretty cool, in fact, but it could be disrupted at the beginning. What is your personal opinion on this?
I really like it. I have it installed, like a lot of people here at WWDC. As soon as we could get our hands on it, we're installing and trying it out. There's been a lot of people, you know, commenting and complaining about icons and gradients. I really like it so far. I kind of make a habit of liking these things. My intention is not to find things to complain about. My real intention as an educator is, this is the way I think this is going. There's no point in me resisting any of this. So I like what they've done with the clarity of the interface. I'm already getting very adjusted to the flatter design, the flatter style of the icons. I much prefer things like the mail application and the music application. I think are very, very nice. So yeah, I'm a big fan of everything I've seen so far. You can tell that there's still things about it that are a work in progress, but I'm quite willing to give them a bit of time.
Yeah, it's the first beta of iOS.
Absolutely.
It's a wait and see. But what could you answer to people say that, oh, it's just a copy of Android system of a way of Windows Metro?
Yeah.
Yeah, they use flat design, but
exactly, and that's the thing is, you know, one of the common things people talk about. Wow, the Windows Phone had the flat design. If anybody can pick a Windows Phone and iOS 7 and compare these two and say that they're copies of each other, it's ridiculous. They simply don't look, behave, feel anything like each other. That iOS and Apple in general have always been about clarity and simplicity. So the idea of going from the reflections to the flatter style is a very Apple thing to do. There's nothing, there's nothing about this that strikes me as any kind of copy. It doesn't look and behave like Windows 7, or I'm not much of an Android user, but I mean, really, it just, no.
But you made a lot of courses about Java, so maybe you have background in
I used to program Java. I mean, I use Java quite a lot in some of the courses I do, simply because it's a very generic object-oriented language. I actually don't really program in Java. I haven't programmed in Java for about 10 years. It's just, and I don't do Android development at all. It's nothing against it, I simply don't have the time.
Okay, great. Have you got anything to, maybe you have a look to the new development tools,
Sure.
like Xcode 5. Could you make a bit of a...
Yeah, absolutely. And actually the things that most excite me and where I'm going to spend most of my time in the coming months is both Xcode 5, which looks terrific to me. Again, going with this whole approach of simplicity and clarity. It's a simpler interface. It looks like it's easier to use. So I'm going to be redeveloping my courses using Xcode 5. I know that already. One of the actual areas of iOS, thank you. One of the areas of iOS and of Mavericks that interests me most is actually the sprite kit and the game development, kind of 2D game development area.
Yeah, with the new command.
Yeah, and supporting controllers and stuff. Apple have always encouraged people to do game development, but they've never really had a significant story for that. And I think now, if you're wanting to do 2D game development, you're not going to be looking at something like Cocos on an iOS device. You're going to be looking at sprite kits, and I think what they've done there, and I've gone through a couple of the sessions and spoke to some of the engineers, I'm really excited about the way that's going to go over the next couple of years. So yeah, Xcode 5, sprite kit, those are the two big things for me taking away from this conference.
Just talking about sprite kits, on va expliquer just speaking French, and text, on va expliquer aux auditeurs français qu'en fait Sprite Kit qui a été annoncé là à cette WWDC est en fait un paquet de framework destiné au développement de jeux. So talking about Sprite Kit, don't you think that it will kill about framework like Coco 2D or something like this?
It's definitely going to have it's going to have a pretty significant impact on that. But it's kind of what can you do? The thing about it is, even looking at it, this is not some half-thought approximation. They've obviously been thinking very deeply about what they're intending to deliver with this. The integrated physics engine, the way that it's integrated with the core image filters, things that you can do to your sprites, in that it feels like a Coco and Coco Touch framework. It doesn't feel like some afterthought, something that has been tacked on. It really does feel like it integrates very well to the rest of the iOS development world, and I think. So
we talk about this game framework, which is open source, but Apple has released a new feature called keychain, iCloud keychain in the cloud. What do you think about because in fact these features will kill some apps like we think to 1Password. In fact,
sure.
What do you think about that? I think, I'm not sure, but I think there's still the idea is in fact something like this.
Yeah, absolutely, and it's often been the case that when you sit through a keynote and Apple talks about what they're releasing, you can almost come up with the 5 or 6 companies that just went, oh no. And this time, obviously, with Keychain and the cloud, the solutions like 1Password are going to absolutely feel that very, very deeply. But as you say, that's the thing about it is this is something that people want to have in an operating system. It's something that makes sense. If you're sharing the idea of bookmarks, if you're sharing the idea of contacts and mail, and everything is being shared across multiple devices, the area where someone like Apple can say, oh no, we're not going to allow you to share your passwords. Well, of course they are. It's almost a predictable event that something like this was going to come. If not now, then it would have been a year from now. So I don't think in any way that Apple are making these choices because there's some business that they want to get into. It's making these choices because this is something that people want from their operating systems and they want from their integrated devices. It's a natural evolution.
Okay. You say that you have a good impression of what Apple released. Have you got any wants, any things for Apple to add in the new version of? Do you want something new?
Whenever I watch the keynote, I'm always hopeful for something, unusual. Like a lot of people, I didn't really expect, the watch or the television or things like that. But it would have been great if they'd actually appeared. There's not a lot that I look at with iOS and think, well, that's missing or that isn't. And, because of such a rich infrastructure around it with all the applications, if there's something that's not built in, there's often apps to do it, and if there isn't, it might be something that I'd write. So no, I'd say there's not really a lot that I think Apple are actually missing. If I'm ever using somebody else's,
maybe in frameworks or something like this. Because in my personal opinion, there's a lot of a bunch of methods and properties about notification center.
Right.
Là, je parle des notification center de développement et pas de notification du centre de notification qu'on a dans iOS. So there's a couple of event handler, but I prefer if they can add more and more. It's better for development, for memory improvement, something like this. Have you got something to once appear in the SDK?
Well, what my big wish from the last year or so is I've done a lot with core data, and one of the issues that they had with the core data and iCloud support was just not good. I mean, it just wasn't reliable. It didn't work very well. So that was something I was very happy to see in this new one. That was actually probably, if you'd asked me a week ago what I was looking for, it would be make the core data synchronization over iCloud work, and work for a variety of situations with either large updates, small updates, multiple ones. So that was kind of the big thing for me. Going forward, I'd like to see them do something with SpriteKit where it's perhaps integrated a bit better with SceneKit, so we have better 3D support. That kind of thing I'd like to see more of, but I'm sure it's coming.
Okay. Do you want to say something more we haven't talked about here?
No, I think I'm pretty good. I mean, it's always the case where when I'm at these conferences, I like to give myself about a week to kind of let everything digest and let the dust settle before I figure out what I really enjoyed and what I didn't at the most. But yeah, I've had a great time. It's been a great conference. A lot of first-time attendees. I think they said something like 65–68% first-timers at WWDC.
61, I think.
Right. So it was it's been a great crowd. Been a great time. Yeah.
Well, and for finishing this interview, could you say a word in French?
J'aime Mac4ever. Pronounce that again. The school.
Mac4ever, yes, is the French website about Mac technology.
J'aime Mac4ever. Yeah, je parle un petit peu français. Je suis écossais. J'aime Supinfo. My pronunciation is very bad there. I don't. Yeah.
No, it's really cool. In fact, French is really hard language to speak and to understand.